I say Atari, you say 2600. Atari! You actually didn't need to say anything. I can't hear you. How are you feeling? You got John Riggs here. I have a lot of love for the Atari 2600. It was the console I grew up with. Now, of course, when the NES came out, that basically took over my life. But I didn't even get an NES until like late 80s. My Atari 2600 was my console. It was the only game system I had at home for that whole basically decade. And I've noticed a lot of people, it was like, the GameCube, the 64, Super Nintendo, they don't want to go before the NES. So when it comes to like Atari 2600, a little confused, a little scared maybe, and I can understand. But even games that come out today take so much of their influence from a lot of these great Atari 2600 games. It's fun to see where they all came from. So this video, it is all about the best Atari 2600 games. I got 20 of the best Atari 2600 games that you can start out with immediately. And when I say the best, I mean the best. Starting off with the classic Asteroids. Now, I know the graphics are super simple, but you're gonna get a lot of that with your Atari 2600 games. It's all about gameplay. You play your ship. This is a single screen. You can fly around, zoom around if you want. I remember playing this growing up. I didn't really move. I just stayed right in the middle of the screen and flipped myself around and just shot all the asteroids. And again, with the asteroids, if you're not familiar, you used to get the big asteroids. You shoot those, it turns into two smaller ones. Shoot those, it turns into two smaller ones. That might even fly at different angles. It gets pretty insane after a while. You do have a few kind of power-ups too. Like you can have the option to either do a complete 180 flip. You can have a shield. You can kind of teleport. Like if it's like, oh, I'm about to get hit, I better go literally anywhere else on the board. Unfortunately, in doing that, sometimes you land right on another asteroid. It kills you immediately. I played this game for hours on end, and I absolutely loved it. Also gotta point out too, especially with this game and some of the games later on, there's so much flickering going on with a lot of these Atari 2600 games just based on, what things that they could have on screen. So the graphics look like they're coming in and out, but when you play the game, it looks just fine. Asteroids for the Atari 2600, an absolute classic. Super fun, cute, and kind of a simple game in Frogbog. And Frogbog is kind of fun. 2 players simultaneous, and you'll see a lot of these Atari 2600 games are meant to be 2 players, meant to be played each other, with friends and family and all that. And in this game, you basically just jump from lily pad to lily pad, and then once you're in flight, that's when you can stick out your tongue and try to catch these flies. And you do that, and especially with 2 players, you can play a 1-player mode too, and the computer player will kind of play along with you. You're just trying to go for a better score. That's all what you're looking for. I did like in this game back in the day how it actually turned from day to night, and that was kind of your time cycle. It didn't give you a timer on this thing. You just kept playing until the game was done. But once you made it, it was nighttime. I got the score of 60 here, and then there's the end from the Firefly. There you go. Frogbog, still fun today. Up next, another classic in the world of Defender. Now you are defending Earth from the aliens. Got all these random ships up in the sky. And they're different ones do different things. They might shoot at you. They might just zoom around. Kind of hard to hit them after a while. The ones you really got to look out for are these alien ships because they will come down and beam up humans. And yes, those are humans. That's what they look like. Now it might be too flickery. You might not be able to see them at all in this one. But when they do that, you can shoot the ship, grab the human, safely put it back down to the ground. You got some points doing that too. And you just have to defeat all enemies to move on to the next stage. I loved how this game had a map up in the top of the screen. So if you didn't know where the other ship was, you couldn't find them, you could use the map. That's exactly where you're going here. You do kind of have a smart bomb you can use as well. So like if you're at a certain point in the thing, you press your button, destroys all enemies on screen. That's gonna help you out. And Defender, again, an absolute classic. Still fun today. That's right, I'm gonna say that for literally every one of these games. Now, because space shooters were the hot thing, especially back in these days, another one here in the world of Demon Attack. Now, you kind of think a little bit like Space Invaders. You got your ship down at the bottom, shooting vertical, but this one hit a little different for some reason. It only had 3 ships on screen for the most part, and they just kind of go back and forth, and you shoot them, and then another ship appears out of nowhere. It had cool effects, and it even had kind of cool sounds for its time, for being an Atari 2600 game. I was mesmerized by this game. I just had so much fun playing this game. It was cool to see like what aliens would come next, how they were going to shoot at you, whether it be missiles, whether it be bullets, whether it be like a spray of bullets. Have other options in the game too, so you can either shoot vertically or you can shoot and then when you move, your bullet moves too. A little extra advantage if you want to play that way too. A lot of fun to be had with Demon Attack, a game still fun to play today. Haunted House for the Atari 2600 could be the first survival horror video game of all time. Maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe. You play as this omnipresent set of eyes going through, hey, this haunted house. This haunted house has some spooks and some creatures in there. There are things that you can pick up. There's a scepter that you can ward off the bad guys, but you can't hold the scepter and your pieces of the urn, whatever you're trying to build. That's what you're looking for. You have to build this urn thing and then bring it back to where you started the game from. You have a torch that you can use, and we can use that. That's where you can find the pieces. You can't find the pieces without, making yourself light up like that. Your torch, your flashlight, whatever you want to call it. If a bad guy gets too close to you, it'll blow out, and that sucks. There are 4 levels that you can go up and down these stairs to get to, and then the later on levels you can't even see the walls, and through the passageways there's like doors that you can go through, but sometimes you can't go back through them, so you gotta find another way to get to where you're going. Lots of different stages on this one. I had a lot of fun playing this game. This game's called Haunted House, a game still fun to play today. Frostbite is a fun twist on, let's say, Q*bert, for instance. You have to jump on the platforms, and then every time you jump on a platform, it creates another block for your igloo. There are other items and enemies in the way. You gotta watch out for those. If you hit the button, then your icebergs move a different direction, like they move the other way, so that can sometimes help you out as needed, When you finish the igloo, the very last piece is basically your home, the hole that you walk into it, and then you can go over there, jump in, and then move on to the next stage. Different stages feature different kind of igloo platforms or even items you can pick up. It's all for points anyway. A lot of the Atari games are all about just getting as much points as you can. Of course, I played these games back in the day, and currently, I didn't care about points. I just want to see how far I can get on a single playthrough. Later on levels introduce the polar bear. That's gonna scare you. just another thing to get in your way anyway. But still a lot of fun to play this game. Definitely worth picking up. Definitely worth checking out. Activision made fantastic games for the Atari 2600. Frostbite? Are you kidding me? A game still fun to play today. Speaking of Activision, Kaboom is a fantastic game. It's a game that requires the paddles. Now, in full disclosure, I'm using emulation to grab this footage, and I don't have the paddles, and this game doesn't quite operate as well, but you have the burglar on top who's just dropping all of these bombs, and you have to pick them up using your buckets of water is basically what you play as. And if any of them miss, then that's game over for you. Then you lose a life, and you lose a life by basically removing one of your buckets of water. So you don't want to miss anything if you don't have to. Again, I wish I could show you better gameplay footage of this, but you gotta trust me on this one. Kaboom, absolutely fun. A game still fun to play today. I just love Kangaroo. It's one of the first games that actually kind of had a plot in a way, and I understand that there's also Donkey Kong, and I also understand that this game looks a lot like Donkey Kong. Wait a minute. Well, Kangaroo came out just 1 year after Donkey Kong, so you can definitely see the influence in this game all the same. But you play as a mother kangaroo looking to rescue your Joey, your little baby kangaroo there. You do so by climbing out the ladders. You can pick up the fruit along the way as well. Watch out for those monkeys. They're throwing apples at you, and you can punch them out of the way. You can jump over them, duck under them. You can keep moving, and hey, when you get to where you need to go, on to the next stage for you. A lot of fun with this game. I loved Kangaroo. Great in the arcade too, but played very well for the Atari 2600. Kangaroo is a game that's still fun to play today. There's a good chance I may have played more Frogger than anything else on the Atari 2600. I absolutely loved this game. Now there's a couple of games that maybe I played a little bit more, but it's one of the most played games I played when I was growing up. I don't need to tell you a whole lot about Frogger. As a frog, you cross the street without getting run over. You cross the river without getting eaten by crocodiles or falling in the water. You're a frog. I mean, apparently you don't swim very good. And then onto your home base. And once you fill up all those spots at the top, then it moves on to the next stage. So many games today, like Crossy Road, for instance, so many games today take inspiration from Frogger today, and they have it for the Atari 2600. I understand it's on other platforms too, but we're talking about Atari 2600 games. It can be on other platforms, I don't care. Frogger, Atari 2600, a game that's still fun to play today. Here's a classic Atari game, if there ever was one, in the world of Maze Craze. It's a literal maze. You can play it single player if you'd like. You can do 2 players simultaneous. In fact, there's always going to be that second player. They don't chase after you, but with 2 controllers, who can get through the maze the fastest. And it kind of auto-generates every time you play it. Like if you hit reset or whatever, come up with a new screen, come up with a new area to get to where you need to go. So many options in this too. You can actually remove part of the maze so you can't see the middle of it, or you can't see all of it. There's options later on where you can push a button and it'll guide you to, where you should be going. There's one you can put up an invisible wall, which is a lot of fun to troll the other player to like, oh, can't go through it, but you can totally go through it. Some of them you have to pick up all of the pieces. Some of them you don't have to pick up anything. If you get touched, you're out. It freezes you. You're stunned. A lot of gameplay, especially on 2-player with Maze Craze. So much fun. Loved this game so much. A game that is still fun to play today. Got one of the best shooters in Vanguard on the 2600. There was an arcade game, the same name, same arcade game and everything. This is the Atari port, and it plays really well, I think. What I like about it is you can shoot forward, back, up and down, depending on where you're going. And when you hold the button down, that's when you stop shooting. You're always firing. And when you hold the button down, you can stop shooting, but you can move faster. And that's going to come in handy for you. Every once in a while, you'll find these E-tanks, which makes you invincible. You can crash into enemies, go through walls, whatever you need to do. And a lot of times, it'll switch up the gameplay, too. Like, instead of going horizontal, every once in a while, it would go vertical. And you would have to deal with that, too. Huge fan of Vanguard. Absolutely love it. A game that's still fun to play today. What about Hero? Now, Hero was a game I got later in the life of my Atari 2600-dom, and I loved it because the stages felt like brand new stages every time you played it. Now, other Atari games, it might just change the color, it might change the difficulty. So much of Hero actually made the game bigger. Now, you play as this hero with a propeller backpack. You do have a little laser thing. You could go down, you have to find the lost person in the cave or whatever the storyline is. But with every stage, something else happens, and you do have these bombs that you can kind of like blow up parts of the wall that you can actually get through to where you need to go. But then there's multiple choice places where it's like you can go down one of them. Oh, that's the wrong one. You got to go back up and go down the other one. Or it gets pretty crazy after a while with the game Hero. And you're on a time limit too, so you just got to keep going. Only so much that you can do before it's too late for you, and it's one of those games you're just like, I know I can do better next time. I know I can do better next time. So you just keep playing it and playing it and playing it. Why we don't have a modern day version of this game, I guess there's other games that might be a little like this, but why we don't have a modern version of the actual game Hero from Activision, beyond me. I think it would do really well. Hero, a game that's still fun to play today. And you would be my hero if you subscribe to this channel right now. I would appreciate it. I don't need to tell you about the whole algorithm and the half the people watching aren't subscribed. Just please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Space Invaders, an absolute classic. I would have to talk about this if we're talking about 2600 games because I played it so much. And again, I mean, Space Invaders is one of the old school arcade games, buddy. But man, for all the right reasons, I still like playing this game. And I know there's even new versions of this game available, like on the Nintendo Switch and stuff like that too. Still super fun, but it all comes back to the old school Space Invaders, and this is what it looked like for the Atari 2600. A lot of different options in this one too, a lot of different ways you can play it, like the things move around, or they might turn invisible, or you don't have shields. Also 2 players simultaneous. The more you shoot, the faster they go. I loved this rhythm when you were only down to 4. I don't know why I like that so much, I just thought it was a lot of fun. Love you some Space Invaders, still fun to play today. One of my absolute favorite arcade games growing up was Jungle Hunt, and they had it for the 2600, and done pretty well. It wasn't one-to-one, but it was done good enough for me. It featured a few different gameplay elements. The first one is you go from vine to vine. You had to time it. This was one of the games that taught me about timing, about like, just because I'm forward, it doesn't mean I should let go, because my vine may not be there when I come back. So you gotta time it so it's like, okay, when I jump, that vine's gonna come back my way so I can grab onto it and get a good grip on it. From there, you move to the swimming stage. You can attack these alligators from underneath. Make sure you have enough oxygen to get to where you're going to. Watch out for that. The stage with the boulders, there's little ones you can jump over. There's bigger ones that you can try to jump over, but you can also duck underneath them and everything. This one is usually the stage that gets me caught on the most. I usually die more times on this stage than anything else. I always get the timing wrong. And then finally, this is the game that taught me what cannibals were. That's right, there's a couple of cannibals. I think they even called them cannibals in the instruction manual. There's 2 of them that you gotta jump over, and then once you do that, then you can rescue your girlfriend, or whatever the case is, and then start all over again. I love me some Jungle Hunt, a game still fun to play today. Another old school Atari game in Skydiver. Skydiver, simple enough, you jump out of your airplane, you launch your parachute, you land on the platform, and depending on how the distance between when you launch your parachute and the platform, however small that is, that's where you get the big points. If you don't pull it, you splatter. Look at the bottom of the screen, you got a flag down there. That tells you your wind velocity. That's gonna teach you like, oh, if it's really blowing, you gotta launch it sooner so you can move over, because you may not be able to move back as you're plummeting. with your parachute. I love Skydiver. I played this the most. They recently had that Atari collection on the Switch. I played a ton of this one, and I played a ton of it growing up, man. I still love Skydiver. A game still fun to play today. Oh, Berserk. I love me some Berserk for sure. And the Atari version works out really well because the arcade version had graphics that pretty much looked like this too. So it worked out to your advantage. Well, it's a Maze Runner game where you can shoot the robots and you can move on to the next screen. You don't have to kill all the robots in screen. You do not have to shoot everyone to move on to the next area. You should, and you could, but you don't have to. If you're close to the exit, just go through the exit, man. The more you go, the faster they move, and the faster their bullets move as well. So something else to keep in mind. And every once in a while, this thing, I think his name was like Dr. Otto or Evil Otto, this have a nice day face that bounces toward you was nightmare inducing. It was one of the first times, like, how could something so cute be so creepy? It was. It was impervious. You couldn't do anything about it. You could move on to the next screen. Try shooting it, it's not gonna work. He gonna get you. I love me some Berserk. It's a game that's still fun to play today. We got Dragonfire, and Dragonfire was a personal favorite for sure, and definitely one of the best Atari games. This game happens in 2 stages. The first one is you're going from castle to castle, so you gotta watch out for these fireballs. And there's coming from above and below, you can duck under them, you can jump over them. Once you get into the castle, that's when you can find the dragon. You have to collect all the treasure, run through the door, move on to the next stage. And the more you play this game, the faster the dragon gets. It's crazy. I love how there's so many items on screen that you can grab all at once. But as soon as you're in the eyesight of the dragon, he's gonna start launching fireballs at you. You gotta be quick. You can go back in your little hobbit hole and hide. You can do that. But you gotta find a way to get yourself back out too and move on from there. Love me some Dragonfire, a game still fun. You got it. This game still fun to play today. When it comes to the best shooters for the Atari 2600, you gotta talk about River Raid. It's a game that you can play at your own pace, but you wanna go through it faster, but you wanna slow down, you gotta shoot the boats and the helicopters and stuff like that. You can shoot the fuel tanks, but you can also go through the fuel tanks. And you do have fuel, and the fuel goes down very quickly. The plane you're flying is not fuel efficient, not by a long shot. You keep flying through, blow up the bridge, move on, keep going. River Raid, it just keeps going and going and going. And how high can you get? How far can you get? It's a great game. Love me some River Raid. A game still fun to play today. I wish this footage showed better, but this is Yars Revenge. Absolutely one of the best Atari 2600 games. And so much going on for it for being kind of simple, but still unique. Like, very unique. Like, you have this base that's surrounded by this area that you can shoot away at, you can chip away at it, you can actually eat away at it because you play as kind of like this bug ship thing. The inside of the base part, every once in a while, turns into like this little kind of fireball thingy that will like launch at you. If it hits you, of course you die. You do have this baseline in the middle as well, and that'll protect you from that other little dot. It's like a little scout ship. Not even sure what it is. That little dash that's flying around, that'll kill you too. Gotta watch out for that. But when you chip away at it, or when you touch the base part when it's not like the fireball thing, that's when you get your big bullet, your magic missile, whatever you want to call it. And then when you launch that to hit the other thing, then it blows up. You move on to the next stage. Yars Revenge, still fun, still challenging too, and a game still fun to play today. When you're talking about the best Atari 2600 games, you gotta bring up Adventure. Now, Adventure was the Skyrim of our time. This was what an adventure looked like. This is what oh my god, this is a whole area. This is like a whole new world. You can explore this all you want. There's 3 levels of difficulty. The first one's super easy. The second one, a little bit bigger. The third one was randomized. That's right, they actually had a randomizer in the third one. So it was a different kind of game. You don't know where the items were. You don't know where the keys were. The purpose of the game is to avoid the dragons, and you have to get the magic chalice or whatever to bring it back to your yellow base, your yellow castle. But a lot of items along the way too, like you have like the different castles with the different keys. There's the sword. It looks like an arrow, but it's a sword. They have the bridge that you actually like go through walls. That's right, you can clip through this Atari 2600 game. How about that? And there's other stuff too, like the magnet and all that. This game, I still like playing this today. I mean, it's to me, it's still fun. I mean, yes, there's a lot of nostalgia to it because it's what I grew up playing. But even with that level 3, where it's like everything's randomized, I can pop that in and do that anytime. And I kind of still do. Super fun with Adventure. Man, it's old school. If you haven't checked it out yet, I know it got a little bit of a resurgence thanks to Ready Player One, but super, super fun. I love me some Adventure. A game still fun to play today. How are we going to go through an Atari 2600 video talking about the best games and not talk about Pitfall? Well, that would be impossible, because Pitfall, definitely one of the best games for the Atari 2600, right? There is no ending to this game. I found out much later in life, and I was disappointed because, man, I played this game a lot, and I was like, I'm going to find the ending, I'm going to find whatever I need to do. But no, you just kind of go through and go on an adventure with Pitfall. But there's so much going on in each stage. Like, there's these rolling logs you got to watch out for. There's these lakes you can swing across the vine. There's lakes with alligators in them. You got to jump on their heads when their mouth isn't open, or else you'll get eaten in one gulp. You can also go down underneath and go across those. And when you do that, it brings you to different parts of the maze, different parts of the area that you're in, the jungle. There's other little treasures you can find too, but man, it was just fun to go around this game, especially for people who grew up back in the day playing the Atari 2600. Pitfall was the staple game. You had to have Pitfall because it was like the best, right? And looking back, we just liked playing it for the sake of playing it. It was a platform. It was a way that, platformer games should be. A little exploration. Could this have been the first Metroidvania game? I don't know. It was just fun to play, to see where you're going, and, when you ran out of time, or when you died your 3 lives, then you could just start playing again and maybe go a different direction next time. See where the new path brings you. Pitfall for the Atari 2600, a game still fun to play today. I know I left a lot of biggies off the list too, so what were some of your favorite Atari 2600 games? What ones should have made the list? I also got the best Sega Genesis games right here, and I'm doing more best of series, talking about NES, Super Nintendo, whatever. We're going to make those happen here right quick too. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out, and we'll see you very soon.